You ready?
Yeah.
You ready for this hard-hitting expose? Hey, everybody.
Back to Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
We're coming back to that. Don't worry about it, because we're definitely going to come back. That's an important part of the history of the world. And not only just cinema and the University of St. Francis.
Well, Christmas is an essential part of the Franciscan tradition. And I think Santa Claus Conquers the Martians with Pia Zadora is an essential part of Christmas in my family anyway.
Right. Well, we'll talk more about that because I'm interested in see how weird and deep that goes because I'm kind of curious. Hey, everybody. I'm Eric Petty. I'm the host of Speaking of Today. I don't know how we did it, but we got the president of the University of St. Francis on the podcast. Please welcome to the show, President Dr. Lance Richey.
Thank you. I was not aware I had an option. In that case,
you did.
We'll just take the microphone off and call this to a close.
As soon as you can. Now, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's great to be here.
It's been good talking to you. I've talked to you a lot over the past, and I always dig it. The things that you come up with is.
You and I are two peas in a pod. We are kindred souls.
We really are. Are we Gen X? That was my question, I think.
I think I am Gen X. I'm 1966, and baby boomers ended, depending on how you measure it, December 63 or December 64. So we're older Gen Xers.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I belong in that Gen X, that kind of X unknown, like an algebraic thing.
I feel like a baby boomer.
Do you?
I do.
What was a yuppie?
Yuppies were baby boomers in the early 80s who cut their hair, quit protesting, and decided to make a lot of money.
That was a big look for me with the loafers and the sweater over the shoulder.
The Izod shirts, gotta have the Izod.
I never got the Izod. I got the ones from Value City that were one arm was slightly larger than the other.
Well, I was a Kmart family myself, so
if you had a blue light special. I don't care if it's snow tires.
As a child, the blue light special to me was like the most exciting thing that could happen when you're at Kmart.
Blue light special, what? Anybody?
Yeah. Did you know there's only one Kmart left in the United States right now?
Where's it at?
I'm not certain where it's at, but I just read a story a few weeks ago that went from being the biggest chain in the country to I think there are two left and one is closing. So we are down to like one Kmart.
Wow. That was like the big, that and Sears, that was the big. Where are you going to go for blah, blah, blah? Well,
I'm going to go to Montgomery Ward. Oh, no, wait a minute. No,
Montgomery Ward. Yeah, it was my grandmother, she passed away a long time ago. She would always say, I'm going to go to the Five and Dime.
I can remember Woolworth's Five and Dime.
Yeah.
In my hometown, we had a couple of Woolworth's Five and Dimes.
I love that. The Five and Dime.
I know.
And she would say, I'm going to go sit on the Davenport, the Chester drawers.
Now, Chester drawers,
that's
yes.
still you.
That's a very southern thing, a Chester drawers.
I would go sit on the Davenport. The hell is that at? I always thought that was outside. Okay, well, bring an umbrella. It's going to rain, Grandma. And she would say stuff that was the older term. Then you found out, well, Davenport was just the name of a couch manufacturer. Oh, okay. Lost its luster when you find out the truth about things.
Much. You know, I remember when I was in college and one day Frigidaire, it hit me. Frigid air.
Right.
And it was one of those moments I was like, wow, it blew my mind.
It's not just a clever name.
It's not just a clever name. It's it was one of those odd moments where you've said something your whole life and you suddenly realize what it means.
You're like, that's just crazy to see that. On this show, Lance, you may not know, we do a segment at the beginning. It's called 3 Questions. Yay! You ready?
I am ready.
What is your middle name again?
Byron.
Byron. Were your parents big poetry fans? Why Byron?
That's a very good question. And I actually only found out a few years before my mother died. I always wondered, why Byron?
Yeah.
Because both my parents, first generation high school graduates, Southern blue collar workers. And I thought, what are they doing reading poetry? Found out a few years before my mother died. My father, when she was pregnant, was working with a guy whose name was Byron. And they went, that's a nice name. So
That's it?
That's it. She happened to know somebody who was named Byron, and they liked that name for a middle name.
Really?
Yeah. My brother is Tyrone Jennings. So he got a family name from my mother's side, and his name was Tyrone.
What was the second word?
Jennings. It's
Jennings.
my mother's family name. So I always felt like I lucked up.
You think so?
I like Lance Byron.
Lance Byron?
I use the B a lot, and I sometimes when I want to sound fancy, I use all three names.
That's what you get though when your mom knows you're doing something wrong and you're in trouble though.
I know. Oh.
This mine was Eric Nelson Petty. Like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm just sitting here minding my own business in here, and the TV caught fire. I don't have anything to do with it. That's when the TV used to catch fire all the time. Those old RCA with the vacuum tubes, and my mom would say, "It'll go out. It'll be okay." That's the way that works, and it did. And you turn it right back on, it'd be fine. So Byron's your middle name. What was your mother's maiden name?
Jennings.
Yeah. What street did you grow up on?
I grew up on Delray Circle.
I'm just kidding. I'm trying to get your passwords. That's the. See how easy it is, folks? See how easy it is to get someone password information?
You assume I'm telling you the truth.
I know you to be an honest man. You and I have had some honest conversations.
We've had some
and I've always
honest
appreciated
conversations.
that. I like that about you.
So when I critique you savagely about not finishing Godzilla -1, you know I'm being honest.
I'll finish that probably.
You'd better
I don't know
finish
that I'm going to come back with anything more definitive. There was all this family drama.
Yes.
They need things eating things and fire and explosions and destructions. You know, put Roland Emmerich at the helm on that one, and you got yourself a destruction.
You know, those are fine. We can end this interview right now. If you compare Godzilla -1 to the Matthew Broderick Godzilla,
okay, let me
we are over.
Let me back up because I forgot just in that instance, but the minute I said it, that he did direct the 1994 version. That's not a very good movie.
1997 version.
Was it 7? I always thought it was
8.
Was it?
It was 1998, yeah.
It's a terrible movie.
I rewatched it. My
shouldn't do
kids,
that.
when they were little, liked it, and I rewatched it just recently, and I did remember how bad it was.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
There's no fire in it. He looks more like a walking,
Iguana.
yeah, it's not the uncomfortable suit.
And the character development, horrific.
It is. I don't really care about it. You don't have to give me an exact number. You can estimate this number if you want to. How many times have you been beaten up because of your love for Lawrence Welk?
I don't know, 2 dozen?
2 dozen.
3 dozen.
That's low. I was thinking that.
Well, I won some of the fights. So
For the
you
honor.
didn't ask how many times I'd had fights over it. You asked how many times I've been beaten up.
That's true. I appreciate it. We're going to talk about Lawrence Welk here in a little bit because that's just, it's fascinating.
I beat up Guy Lombardo's grandson. We got in a nasty fight about who was the best big band leader. I laid him out.
You said Lawrence Welk was?
You know.
Versus Guy Lombardo?
Yes.
Really? Anybody have Glenn Miller's side on that one?
No.
Get the trifecta fight in there? No? Last question. What is your Star Wars name?
I don't have a Star Wars name.
You want to figure it out real quick?
Yeah, let's-
Okay. It's the first 3 letters of your last name.
Rick,
Okay. The first 2 letters of your first name.
La,
Oh. The first 2 letters of your mother's maiden name.
J, J-E,
J-E. The first 3 letters of the city you were born in.
G-R-E.
Wow, that's a good one. Rikla Jegri. That's not a bad Star Wars name. You want to know mine is? Peter Wamas.
Peter Wamas.
That's the guy who does your taxes. That's the most non-Star Wars. You got Rikla Jegri, Peter Wamas. That sounds like a guy you'd meet. Here, hey Eric, how you doing? Here's my friend Peter. That's stupid.
You a big Star Wars fan?
I am.
I'm sorry.
I think.
What you're thinking is, I bet Lance is a Trekkie, and you'd be wrong.
You're not a Trekkie either?
No.
See, I'm a Star Wars and a Trekkie. I'm a rarity in this world.
I like the original Star Trek series from 66 to 68. Good. Not a fanatic about it. I like the first 2 Star Wars movies. And then
What's the one episode that you could name
Of Star Trek?
Of Star Trek in the original one?
Well, I mean, the trouble with
That's
tribbles.
what I'm
Everyone
That
knows
is-
the troubles with
Thank you,
tribbles.
Lance. That's exactly right. I appreciate that.
Although, I was thinking about this just the other day. You know, at the end, he teleports all the tribbles over to the Klingon ship. Wouldn't they just have, like, teleported them out into space. So he really just basically handed them over to be murdered.
Right, you wiped out a whole species. That's kind of terrible.
Although the one with Gorn, the lizard guy, where Captain Kirk has the mono lizard face-off.
I love that.
That's a great episode.
They brought that back in the Star Trek in the Brave New World series that's on, is it on Paramount? They bring the Gorn back, and they're actually really nice.
When I was a kid, after watching that episode, I made gunpowder. Because remember, his secret is he finds the saltpeter and the charcoal and the sulfur. And I actually went out following his formula, and I made a little gunpowder that would actually burn. It actually ignited. It was pretty cool.
You burned the house down, did you?
No, I did not. And I could never get the formula right again. But I went, if Captain Kirk can do it, I can.
If you'd have had the internet back then, just think how devastating you could have been. I think that all the time.
I'm not sure the internet's made our world a better place.
It has not. I mean, I can look up all kinds of stuff nowadays, but I know that if I said, I bet you I can make some gunpowder, it's like, get on my phone, and 5 minutes later I'm at Target or Walmart or Lowe's.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you wish that they'd have had cell phones with cameras and the internet when you were in high school and college?
Oh, God, no. Yeah. You know how much trouble I would have? That's just nothing but trouble.
Nothing but trouble.
I was pretty happy with the old days when the phone rang and you went, now I'll get it. It was a matter of pride to pick up the phone. Nowadays, somebody's ringing like, no, I'm going to, what's the X? No. Or put it to voicemail. Then they always leave you the voicemail and says, why'd you put me to voicemail? I'm like, is there, there's
I don't put people to voicemail. I just let it ring through. I don't forward it.
I just can't. I don't care about the whole cell phone. I just got a cell phone or a smartphone, 5 years ago?
I've had one for over 10 years, and I am looking forward to the day when I can go back to a flip phone and never have a text again.
That'd be really fine with me, too.
I'm looking forward to that.
I had a very nice military-grade cell phone that you could drop off a moving truck, and it wouldn't hurt it. I loved it, and my wife finally told me I need to get an iPhone for some reason. I think there's something on my phone that she's tracking.
Probably.
Which I don't blame her,
Maybe.
Quite honestly.
Like the government tells me, if you got nothing to hide, you shouldn't mind if we're looking into it.
That seems logical, but there's something wrong with that too. You are now the new president of the University of St. Francis. Been on the job, 4 months?
Yes.
Now, it's been said about you that Lance Richey is to education as Lionel Richie is to education. What's your big plans coming up? What do you want to do?
We're going to be dancing on the ceiling. So,
liming, that's my big thing. It's a
liming?
Yeah, he says liming. It's a Caribbean term for just kind of laying around like limes.
Oh.
I'd look it up. He goes, something, liming, something, whatever. But might be a different song. Still in one of his songs, no less.
You a big Lionel Richie fan?
I am.
Not so much.
When
you're L. Richie in the early 80s and Lionel Richie's a big star.
Well, it's not as bad as being the Michael Bolton character in Office Space.
That's a great character, though.
Yeah, I know. He's like, the guys, he hates the guy's guts, and he's like, celebrating his whole catalog. That's fine. All I had was Richard Petty and Tom Petty. In relation to them.
Richard Petty is awesome. Petty, every Tom Petty song, I feel like half of the song is great and half the song is not great. And you have to suffer through the not good parts to hear the good parts.
You got an example?
Well, there are many songs that, I think Free Falling, I don't like the chorus part of
it. That is free falling, though.
Yeah.
You like the title, but not the verse.
Well, I mean, but there's a lyric part, and then there's the chorus part.
Yeah.
I don't like the chorus part. But most Tom Petty songs, half the song I like, half the song I don't like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I always liked in Tom Petty's Don't Come Around Here No More, where the original music video was Alice in Wonderland, and the girl was made out of cake. That always freaked me out when I was a kid. But that was about...
86?
Could have been about that time.
Yeah. And
it was Stevie Nicks told him that. He kept going knocking on her door trying to date her or whatever. And she said, don't come around here no more. And that's that song.
What? He What's she being so picky about? I mean,
Stevie Nicks.
he helped her with "Stop Dragging My Heart Around."
I know.
Helped
That's
make
what I
her a
say.
big star.
What are you going to do? You can't have it both ways. You
I
want
think
me to-
"Refugee" is an awesome song.
That is
"Refugee" is maybe the one Tom Petty song doesn't have a bad part to it.
No. Is it
Every part of
refugee or is it refugee?
Oh.
So that's always been my. You can't get that question answered now because Tom Petty passed away.
Yeah.
So you see how that problem is.
I was surprised he died of a drug overdose after so
He had that
many
weird
years.
hip thing that he had, and that's unfortunate.
You know, Tom Petty apparently he literally never did anything except be a musician. Like I read an interview with him once, and he's like, I got out of high school for a few months. I worked in a grocery store, but then he's like, I'm just going to be a musician, and he had the rare life where he just always made his living as a musician.
That'd be
Might have
kinda
been
cool.
poor at times, but he didn't do other things.
No, I'd be all right.
Yeah.
Could you do that?
No, I could not.
I couldn't either. I wouldn't be able to run out of songs.
I think he did too.
Well, I think they all do. It's very rare you get somebody later on like the Eagles or Doobies or Billy Joel that comes around, had a 40-year-long career, and suddenly you're going to have a hit again.
Aerosmith, greatest comeback, late 80s, early 90s, greatest comeback in the history of rock and roll.
Were you talking about with their collaboration with Run DMC comeback?
Well, that was not an Aerosmith collaboration. That was just Steve Tyler and Joe Perry. But then with the album, what was it, Pump, they had, they really, after about a 5 or 6 year hiatus where they just did a lot of drugs, came back, had bigger hits in the late 80s, early 90s than they had in the 70s.
That Dream On's a good song.
It is a good song.
It's used in every late 70s, early 80s motivational movie during the credits.
My wife is of the opinion that Steve Tyler exists professionally to make Mick Jagger look better by comparison.
Somebody has to. I mean, somebody has to do that
Mick
job.
Jagger's like 81 years old.
That's such a, and he still does the
He's
job.
still doing it.
I mean, my wife has been singing with a band. She works at Sweetwater, and they've been recording some songs or whatever, and she was at this little shindig they have, whatever that word means, and putting together some songs, and she was singing for like 4 hours, and she got done. She was, I'm so exhausted. Really? I said, how bad was it? She was, I've been singing for 4 hours. She goes, I can't believe how hard this is. And I go, just think of these guys that go on tour for
It's unbelievable.
years. Like Ed Sheeran and all that, you're on tour for 3 years. Heck with that. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, we talk, and not to get political, but we talk about our presidential candidates. They're so old. Mick Jagger is as old as the older presidential candidate.
dancing.
And he's rocking it out.
So as president, let's go back to that question.
Let's go back to that.
What do you want to do? What's your big plans? You got a master plan? You got something in your pocket?
We're working on that. I would say the real dream here is that we strengthen USF. We strengthen who we are as a Catholic university, serving a diverse student population. We strengthen our finances. We strengthen our academic programs, make sure they're continue to be high quality but aligned to what students need. We make sure that our place in the community, people know who we are, that we're contributing to Fort Wayne and Indiana. Most of all, and I'm not trying to be cliched here, I think USF has a really great future, but we need to prepare ourselves for it. The world changed during COVID. The world continues to change. And higher ed tends to be a slower pace of adjustment. And most colleges right now, we're not in a period where you can adjust at the level you're comfortable adjusting at. You've got to adjust at the level that the world demands. So I think we can run more efficiently. I think we can have fewer processes, more efficient processes so that people can focus on the students, which is what we're about.
Yeah.
I think we can take the resources we have and accomplish a lot more than sometimes we do if we run the place right. And that's really the goal that I have, to work with the board, to work with the sponsors, to work with the cabinet and the faculty and the staff to figure out what's our core mission. How do we best carry that out? How do we carry it out in a way where we impact the world the most in a sustainable way? The strategic plans can be a really critical part of that. As we interview today, we are wrapping up the campus listening sessions. We've identified core areas that we want to address in the strategic plan. Board of Trustees has endorsed that. We've been talking around campus, talking with students, talking with alumni, some other constituencies to find out what are your ideas about how we might address these areas better. As we go into the fall, we're going to be putting together a concrete strategic plan with a lot of specific recommendations, metrics and benchmarks to figure out, are we meeting these goals, identify who has to do them, going to have the board endorse that. That's going to be our roadmap. So I think by the time we go home for Thanksgiving or by the time we come back in the new year, we're going to have the roadmap to follow, and we're going to follow that roadmap. It's going to be a good plan. It's going to require change. It's going to require sacrifice and creativity. But at the same time, I think it really promises the reward of we can educate more students, educate them better, support our employees in their jobs better, and make USF's mission a little more focused and real in the community. I figure that's my job over the next few years in this role. If at the end of my tenure in this position, USF is in a better place, if we're teaching students, making the Catholic Franciscan mission a reality, the university is financially stronger and a better position to keep doing its core mission, that's success. That truly is all I care about.
Yeah. What's your biggest challenge? Challenges. Go plural if you need to.
Boy, yeah, it's plural. I mean, everyone knows the challenges around here. In Indiana, the percentage of high school students going on to college is shrinking. It's dropped from the upper 50s to the lower 50s since COVID.
That makes that big a difference, though. Just that. I mean, it's not a massive drop. It's not 50 to 10.
But think about it. If you had 59% of students who were going to go on to of graduates who were going to go on to college, you dropped to 52%. So that's a 12, 13% drop. That's 1 out of 8 potential students disappearing. On a 2,000 student campus, that's 250 students that you don't have. That's a big impact.
Yeah.
The total number of students we're approaching the demographic cliff. So the total number of students is going to be declining moving forward, and the percentage of that total number of graduates who will go to college is declining. So it's really becoming a very competitive environment. We look around the Fort Wayne area. Healthcare is one of our biggest areas of programs.
Sure.
Other universities are looking to that to get into that. So the competition that we face in one of our key areas is becoming steeper. Across the country, more traditional programs, I think you read about it in the papers, people are more skeptical of the value of a college degree unless that college degree just kind of immediately converts into a job.
Right.
There's a greater skepticism. Is this worth the money? So we have to convince people education is an investment in yourself. It's the best investment you can make. So come to USF and invest in who you are, and life will work out. But we have to get that message out there. We have to prove to people that a USF degree offers them something that, without any detraction to them, a PFW degree or an Indiana Tech degree or a IU degree, those may be great degrees. We offer something different, and the different is something that will change your life in a way that simply a technical degree or a secular university's degree can't offer.
You're talking about a more meaningful approach.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it's hard to sell meaningful in a inflationary economy, in a competitive workplace, in a polarized society. It's very hard for us to make the case what we do is different, unique, and uniquely valuable.
Yeah.
But I really, if I didn't believe it wasn't, I wouldn't do the job. I can go do other jobs. I really believe in the product. I believe in what we do for students. And I want to message that out to the world. I want all of our faculty and staff to message that out to our students. But we have to make sure we're on the same page, what we're messaging out. What is it that's distinctive about us? what is the impact we want to have on students' lives. If we're just here to make good professionals, that's not a bad thing, but it's not enough.
Right.
What kind of professionals do we want to make? What kind of people do we want to help make? Because really, we don't produce professionals, we produce people. And we produce them by introducing them to ideas, by giving them skill sets, self-confidence, self-discipline, all the things that make for productive, flourishing human beings. And that's a pretty complicated process. So we need to have serious conversations about what we're trying to accomplish. We need to come to an agreement about what that is, and we need to focus relentlessly on it. If we focus relentlessly on who our students are and what we want to do for them, we will succeed as a university.
I agree, totally. Are you done? You done with the interview?
I'm done now.
I'm gonna walk away.
Mic drop.
Walk away. That was well put. I'm glad you talked about that, because that's always been a question with anywhere. I've gone to a lot of schools, and you think, why I went here for, well, they had a program I liked, or I went here because it was location, or I went here for whatever. You put it in a much different perspective about what we're trying to accomplish. I love that. What else? What other kind of challenges?
I think it's really, the big challenge is always change.
Yeah.
The having to figure out what are the things we're doing that maybe really fit a different circumstance, but the world has shifted and we have to figure out a new way of doing things. Being more efficient, being more responsive, probably figuring out what we need to stop doing. It's just like in your family. As you go through your raising children, as you go through your marriage, what works at one time may not quite work at another time.
That's true.
And healthy families adapt. Healthy families say, we're not going to do that anymore. We need to start doing something else to accomplish the same good, which is that we support one another, that we love one another, and that we continue to be a flourishing community. That's what families are when they work out. I think that's what universities are when they work out. But if you get locked into a pattern that doesn't recognize that, whatever, the children are growing older, spouses develop different needs, different interests. The economy is different. We have different expenses. We have to stop doing some things. We have to start doing other things.
Yeah.
Families that don't respond to that typically aren't happy families, and they aren't successful families. Same is true with universities.
I think so too. There's this kind of idea. You go back to the students thing and bringing them in. There's a lot of students when I used to teach high school that I taught finance and economics and business stuff. And we would sit there and talk amongst the students. What do you want to do next? What's your plan? Not the 5-year plan. What do you want to do? And some people knew, I want to be a chemical engineer, whatever that is. It's always dangerous. Okay. And a lot of people, I don't know, probably going to go into business with my dad, something like that. To a student, I said, let's just say you go to college. You get out of college, how much are you going to make? 100,000. Oh yeah? Do you know something that I don't know? And they would all say that. And why do you think that? And I would always ask them why they thought, well, so-and-so, my parents or whatever like that. Yeah, but they've been in the workforce for 30 years. They said, you can come back and get a $100,000 job out of college, let me know. Because I'd be really curious with that. But I thought, is the expectation being set somewhere is so extraordinarily high? You get out in the workforce, you're making $9 an hour for the first couple of years selling shoes at JCPenney's, which I had friends that did. You figure, are we selling the wrong idea here? Is it selling just get out and make as much money as you can, burn yourself out, or is it finding balance?
I think what people really want is to be happy in life. I don't think people want to be rich. I don't think people want to be powerful. I think people want to be happy. And real happiness comes from relationships and doing things that are meaningful to you. And I think that's what a good education can do. It can give you the self-understanding, the self-awareness, to know what will make you happy, and then give you the skill sets to pursue that in a way that can sustain you on the things that make for a good life.
Yeah.
You need to make enough money. A family, for most people, a family is an important thing. They need to have the ability to earn enough money to support a family. If they don't understand the good there, my relationships, my family, they become obsessed with the money and they wind up not being happy people. They may be rich people, but they're not happy
They're not
people.
happy with that.
We want to produce happy graduates. And that's not just giving them professional skills. It's giving them self-awareness. It's giving them deeper values that they can root their decision-making in and that can guide them. And I think that's what makes us attractive to students if we can communicate that. We don't offer you everything. We offer you a path to happiness if you're willing to walk that path, and we'll help you discover what that looks like for you. I personally think that's rooted in faith. It's rooted in human relationships and family. It's rooted in careers that aren't just about money, but are about the good that you bring about through your work, whether you're an educator, whether you're a financier, whether you're a healthcare professional, whether you're a writer, whatever you choose to do, hopefully your work is making the world a better place.
Let's hope so.
USF, I think, is well positioned to help students do that. And that's a great legacy to have. I would love to have graduates who are all worth $10 billion. I'd really rather have graduates who live lives of meaning and satisfaction and happiness and faith.
Yeah.
And I think if we do that, we're carrying out our mission.
Be great for the endowment.
It would, yes. I wish Bill Gates and Elon Musk both had USF undergraduate degrees.
All right.
But they don't. And that's not my concern. My concern is the students who are here. What are we doing for them? I've sent my kids here. I've taught the students here. We get great students. We get students who we have the unique ability to transform their life by helping them figure out what a good life is. Yeah. And when we do that, we're at our very best. When we run into those graduates 10 years down the road that, they may not be making $10 billion, but they're flourishing as human beings and they love USF, and people who meet them come to know, oh, wow, USF was a part of the goodness that I'm encountering. Yeah. That's what's most important.
Well, how do you communicate that? These things we're talking about, and I appreciate you telling all the viewers this, all 3 or 4 of them that there are. How do you communicate that?
You didn't tell me the audience was that big.
That's a big audience, by the way. It's usually less than 1. Quite a bit. How do you communicate that out? Billboards, blah, blah, blah. But how do you get that message out?
I think you get it. We advertise our career outcomes. We advertise our values. We advertise the value proposition of our degree. And that draws students in the door. But it's how you interact with them when they're here that makes the difference. We have a really high success rate. If a potential student actually comes to campus, comes on our campus and meets faculty and staff, there's a very high likelihood that they will come to USF, much higher than most schools. I'll make up statistics, but these are what I've kind of seen. Most schools, if a student comes, you get a 10 or 15% yield rate. 10 or 15% of students who visit actually attend. We're in the 30s.
Is that right?
Pushing 40. I mean, wow. It's a very high level, because I think when people come here, they meet faculty and staff who are good people, who care about them, who treat them as individuals, and really show concern for their success as human beings. Not just as students, not just as athletes, but as people. And that's the secret sauce right there. When we get taken away from that, when we're more focused on paperwork, or we're more focused on processes, or we're more focused on raw numbers than we are with the person in front of us, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Well, you're focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah. And students pick up on that.
Yeah, for sure they do. With United States, I can't speak to the world, but with the United States on a diminishing religious attendance, religiosity, is that a word?
It is.
Well, then
It's a fine word.
I'm going to edit out my question as to whether or not it is going to be more definitive later on. With the world becoming that, maybe it's kind of shifting to spiritualism, whatever. How do we at this school then keep that mission moving forward? You're already talking about less students from 59% to 52%. It's a big drop. Now we're looking someplace in the last 6 months, I read something somewhere in the 60% used to attend church. Now it's in the 40s. How do we reconcile that and get those individuals in to appreciate the message and the idea here?
I think the best way to sell the message is to live the message. We do have declining numbers of Catholics, declining numbers of religiously practicing people in our society. To me, that's a matter of indifference. Not that I would like to see a higher level on both, but for what we do, our job is not to cater to what society needs. Our job is to say, we offer an education rooted in our deepest beliefs and values. We believe this can change people's lives, regardless of your personal faith tradition, and it's worth your money. And to deliver that to people.
Yeah.
A Catholic education, in my opinion, is not defined by the number of Catholic students we have. It's defined by the character of what we deliver to all students, regardless of their personal beliefs. Some students if a student simply doesn't want that, they won't come here. I would say if we come to live in a world where no one wants what we have to offer, there's not a place for USF anymore. I don't believe we live in that world. And I believe that if we're true to what we believe, we'll create a world where people want what we have.
Yeah.
Mother Teresa, when she visited the United States, the late 70s, Senator was talking to her and he said, you do all this stuff in the slums of Calcutta and you do all this work with the poor, but there's still so much poverty in the world, How can you think that you're making a difference? And her response was, God didn't call me to be successful. God called me to be faithful. And I think that's true for us. We're called to be true to what USF is about. And I firmly believe that if we are true to our faith, if we're true to our mission, we will succeed. And if we don't succeed, we will fail knowing that we were true to our deepest values.
Yeah.
And that's integrity. And that's the model we want to give to our students. One of the core values of what we want to deliver to students is personal integrity, that they understand their deepest values and that they live a life according to them. If we change our tune every time the marketplace shifts a little bit, we can hardly tell students they need to stand strong in their beliefs.
It's so inconsistent.
Yeah.
You need to stay the stalwart, the rock, as it were.
Now, we do have to adjust. It doesn't mean we can never change. I think we're constantly challenged to draw the distinction between how we do things and what we're trying to do. And how we have done things in the past may have to change. But what we're trying to do is to impart to students our values, critical thinking, awareness of the world and their place in it, a desire to be impactful in the world in a positive way, to serve others. I think we've always tried to do that, and that's what we have to keep trying to do. The way we do it may change, but what we're trying to do remains the same. Go back to a family. The way you run your family changes whether you have 3-year-olds or 13-year-olds or 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
But you're always trying to do the same thing. As a parent, you're trying to help your children grow into the adults you want them to be. As a child, you're trying to, love your parents, in some way honor them, but live authentically in the situation that you find yourself
Well, that's for
in.
sure.
So I think as a university, what we looked like 50 years ago is very different from what we look like today. But I hope that what we were trying to do 50 years ago is the same of what we're trying to do today.
Yeah.
And Will we fail sometimes? Yeah, we'll fail
Well,
sometimes.
you're supposed to. Well, nobody learns more than the teacher
Yeah.
in a classroom, as I've always thought. I have 3 grandsons. One, and
No way.
I do. I'm old. I'm a lot older than you, but 6 years younger. Just kind of way that it works, I guess. And one's 5 months old, almost 3 and almost 5. And,
Congratulations.
you know, it is a wonderful thing. They are the things that they look at in the world, the things they say, just the world is so open and wonderful, and they play outside and with no shoes on and break their ankle, whatever. And it's every time I turn around, there's something new that I find out about. And I think, man, am I lucky that I had these little 3 guys hanging around, because I love them to death. You're just around them, and they all have their own little thing. One's a little bit more, it's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're so vastly different. Or M&Ms, they're all different flavors. I don't care what you say. Or Fruit Loops. Same thing. Different flavor of human being. And they all have their own little things about them that you just kind of sit there and go, why are you putting a box on your head and cranking it into the wall? And then you go, well, give me the box. And so you try it, and you go, okay, I could see why this is an interesting experiment. You can do that, and I do a lot of ridiculous things with them. I love that.
You're probably a really fun grandfather.
I don't know. I make them stuff. I make them things. I make UFOs and airplanes out of balsa, because I grew up with that. The old days, we used to get the balsa wood paper or the airplane things or whatever. So I make them stuff, and then I make them a little manifesto that I wrote, with my name or my face superimposed on something, and then.
Why does balsa wood exist if not for like little fake airplanes? I mean, is there any other use in industry or the world for balsa wood?
I don't know how it survives. It must be the most guarded tree in the whole world. That's tough.
It's a fragile, delicate plant.
There's another wood above that called basswood, and that's a pretty good one too. It's just hard enough. The balsas, I don't understand it either. I've wondered that too. It's like, how does this? I don't even know what a balsa wood tree looks like. Is that one right there in the corner? I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, when we talk about our students, to turn back to that, but this is, maybe it's the stage of life I'm at and you're at, but in many ways, it's like parenting.
It is.
Every kid is different. Success looks different for every child, and they're all unique individuals. But we also know that we want all of our children to have certain things in common about the way they live their life and what they value and how they carry themselves that we're proud of. And I think that's what we want for our students.
That's what I want too.
Students have their own journeys. All we can do is accompany them on those journeys. But if we do that right, we turn them into better people. As a teacher, I've always been amazed. You get these students in and you get these interesting, fascinating 18-year-olds fresh out of high school. And somehow 4 years later, they've turned into remarkable adults who are ready to take on the world. And you can never find a single point where it's like, oh, that's where that happened.
No, it's some sort of weird.
It's a weird magic.
Where did that even come from?
But we know that we were with them. We worked with them. We supported them. We challenged them. And if we did it right, when they walk across the stage at graduation, we're just as proud as their parents are. But it's kind of a hidden magic. And that's what USF is. It's a hidden magic. But we also see it not work sometimes with students. And we're always sad at that. And our goal has to be, what do we want to do with the students? What do we want to accomplish for them? What do we want to help them become? And make sure we're doing everything in our power so that that's likely to happen.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by my students. There's ones that I have in class that are getting not great grades. But then you talk to them and you go, how is it you're not an A student? And I want that so bad. Yeah. But no matter how much I want it, it's just not. I don't know why it doesn't happen. There's a reason for it. I wasn't a good student in high school and early college. Later on, I was a great student. But it took me a long time to figure that out. So I always kind of keep that in the back of my, maybe they can come back at 30 or 28 or 80 and go back and do something different.
I think, if there's a value proposition to USF that you can communicate, it is we're not a 30,000 student campus.
For sure.
We are a smaller campus. Your professors know you by name.
Absolutely.
Hopefully they know you as people. I look back to my college years. I too was not a straight A student in college.
No?
Nor a straight B student in college. And sometimes I was a straight C student in college. I had a lot of growing up to do. I had a lot of self-discovery that had to happen. But I was at a school about the size of USF. It was a faith-based college.
Where was that at?
Furman University.
Where's that at?
Greenville, South Carolina, my hometown.
Okay.
I got a great education there. Could have gotten a better education if I'd have read more of the books.
That's kind of important.
Often a trick to education that I learned late in life.
Right.
But most important thing was I had professors who knew who I was and who had patience with me, who challenged me, who, on a human level would correct me when I was being a total knucklehead, but also saw potential, I think, that maybe I didn't see. And had I been at a different school, I wouldn't have made it through college, and my life would be very different and a much lesser life.
You don't think you'd be president of a university?
If I dropped out of college, I probably wouldn't be a president of a university.
You got about a 40% chance.
But I will say, what I'm doing now is not the success in my life. It's been my family, my being a teacher, my further education. My success in life, I feel, has been continuing to try to answer some of the questions that my freshman college professors posed for me. My freshman year in college, intellectually was transformational. I don't know that it transformed my personality to study harder, but it posed a set of questions that I still think about every day about what is the meaning of life? What is our place in history? How does literature and art and politics coincide? What do I want for my life? A lot of these questions were posed for me as a freshman in college, and I still find myself constantly struggling and thinking about them. And most of my education has kind of secretly or not so secretly just been an attempt to answer questions that were posed for me when I was an 18-year-old by really good professors who challenged me to think about life.
Yeah.
I hope we do that for students. Students are different nowadays. We're a slightly different kind of college, but we've got a core curriculum which at its best can really challenge our students to be more than just the excellent professionals they want to be.
It's a better human being.
Yes.
It's, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of Star Trek, the motion picture. Now, you have stated emphatically that you hate Star Trek. Didn't you?
I don't think I've stated that.
I don't know. I've heard that. I don't know. I may have
Trek.
heard that outside. The Star Trek, the motion picture with V'ger that comes in, and V'ger is that Voyager, was it 1 or whatever it was, it went through a black hole or something like that.
Was that
Wormhole.
Kirstie Alley's movie debut?
Could have been. And then William Shatner didn't like her, and so he said goodbye. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't. You've
been less of a Star Trek guy now.
Right. I met William Shatner at the embassy a while back. He did we watched Wrath of Khan. Embassy showed Wrath of Khan, and he was there and talked about it.
Now there's a great movie.
Ricardo Montalban.
Yes.
And then it comes back later on, what's the Search for Spock, and then Christopher Lloyd really takes that next Klingon spot.
Search for Spock was a bad one.
It was okay. But the Wrath of Khan was just great.
It was.
But V'ger comes in.
The best Star Trek movie.
I would say so too. But V'ger comes in, and here he's traveled all over, Lord knows where. Nobody knows where it comes from, although I think it's the same planet that the Borg comes from, because they say resistance is futile. And Spock says it's futile to resist. And they should make a movie around that one of these days. You're going to see screenwriter Eric Petty here on that thing. And the question that V'ger has is that all there is? This machine came back and asked that question. Is this all there is? He was looking for some connectivity to the world. He wanted to meet the maker, ultimately. It's a very human idea for the Star Trek movie came out. It was considered not great, but I've been fascinated by the movie and watched it a bunch of times in my life. Is that all there is? Is there something more? Is there more connection we should have with human beings? I've seen the world or whatever, but what's missing? And you're talking about a lot of those things that is missing in society, in education and such. I wasn't a good student either. I graduated with high school with a 1.7.
How did you graduate the 1.7?
Yeah, right.
I was pretty good in high school, and I got to college, and the lack of structure.
I flunked out of college. I flunked out of IU. So I'm going to be the president of the school next. So get out, and then I'm going to take over because you want to hire some.
You catch me on the right morning, and we won't even have to argue.
I like this presidential digs you got here. That's why
It's not much, but we call it home.
Yeah, I'll move in if you want.
Well, you got to thank Sister Elise for this, because she really, back about 20 years ago, was the one that drove the renovation of this historic mansion back to...
It's gorgeous in here.
It's just gorgeous. It was a huge lift for the university, but it is the iconic heart of the campus.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd be working in this building. So
Do you look out the windows every day with your arms crossed and evaluate and adore the fief done that you lord over? That's what I would do.
I will tell you that yesterday, I don't think I ever looked out the window, and I never got to leave the building because I was so busy and just endless meetings. So no, I do not sit here as the man in the high castle and ponder the meaning of history. I'm usually dealing with things much more immediate.
That's a good.
But
book.
I get to work with a really great team. I get to work with great people.
You get to work with me. And John. John's over there.
Well, what more could I ask for? John's being quiet over there.
You don't know what's going on over there.
I get really
deep
emotional when we talk about John.
Oh, really? Me too, but it's the opposite set of emotions. It's very. You're on this side. I'm on this side of the spectrum. It's a very angry view of that. You were talking about a Man in the High Castle, Philip K. Dick.
Yes.
You a big fan of his work?
Really haven't paid much attention to it. Love Blade Runner.
Total Recall.
I only saw the movie. Not that. I only saw the first version of the movie.
You don't need to see the second one.
Yeah. Well, the first one's not that great either.
This is the same thing. I had a conversation with Ron Lewis that he said Rocky III with Clubber Lang, Thunderlips was the worst Rocky. I thought I was going to have to hit him. I haven't talked to him since.
I hope that you did hit him.
How is that? And he goes,
I pity the fool. Don't
and I said,
appreciate
well, which
Rocky
one?
III.
Me too. I very much so. I said, which one? He said, Rocky IV. And I said, it's all montage. It's like 7 montages in that, that.
Here's the if you watch all 4 the only Rocky movies, the first 4, none of the others are really Rocky movies. If you'll notice at the end of I think the first Rocky is one of the great American movies.
Absolutely.
I believe it's truly classic. And you look at the poster for it, you look at the closing scenes with him and Adrian, and he's been through this fight, and he just looks like someone took a hammer to his face. The eyes are black and everything's beat up.
The steak eyes that he had.
Every movie, by the end, he's less beat up. At the end of the 4th movie, he's just fought this giant Robo-Russian who killed literally Apollo Creed.
He's got a swelling here.
Little swelling like here, a brush on his nose.
Fine.
Wants to talk to America. They become ridiculous. But I absolutely love the first Rocky. I think it is it's one of the top 100 films, American films ever made.
Supposedly Chuck Wepner, Philly or Boston native, that was taken from his life, and he sued Rocky or Stallone some years later, and I think they kind of settled out of court with that because it was pretty much Chuck Wepner's life. He looked a lot worse for wear. He looked like a Randall Tex Cobb.
Looked like Burgess Meredith.
Did he? Burgess Meredith was great though. I loved him.
It's remarkably a human movie. I mean, it's a character-driven film that happens to have boxing in it.
I was always a Burgess Meredith fan from Twilight Zone days because he was in that. So was
the Surviving the Nuclear War.
So you can.
Don't forget he was also the Penguin in Batman.
The original one.
The original Penguin.
And Cesar Romero and
Frank Gorshin,
Vincent Price
as the Riddler.
I always thought was cool when they did Batman The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger.
Yes.
Now, you and I have agreed.
We have agreed. One of the greatest film performances ever.
That's the best villain. I mean, Voldemort, fine. Great. Darth Vader, without a doubt.
Whatever.
Heath Ledger is so extremely dangerous in that movie.
Yes.
It's
It's
wicked.
mesmerizing.
It
It's
is.
one of the rare screen performances. I will go to YouTube just to watch clips of Heath Ledger as Joker because he so utterly dominates the
It
screen.
is. I remember watching it, and I remember when they said that Heath Ledger was going to be the Joker. I'm like, pass. Hard pass. Then you watch this thing and you go,
Wow.
this is the most dangerous person I've ever seen on screen. Everybody has some sort of thing about him that, I don't know, a weakness or something. He was a guy that was so driven, and you could tell that there was, whatever his life was, is what made him to be who he was. But he was so smart and just, that's a devastating performance.
It is incredible.
I love that. When they first see Heath Ledger there, he's holding onto his mask. You could hear that train. He's holding onto a mask. That's actually the mask that resembles Cesar Romero in the original Batman. That original Batman series with Adam West.
Yeah. I don't think The Dark Knight is a great movie.
No, why not?
I find all the Batman movies overly long and somewhat tedious, but Heath Ledger redeemed it.
So you like Ledger more than Nicholson in the Joker role?
Yes, but I'm not sure it's a fair comparison. Two different films, different directors.
Different approach, right?
Yeah, I mean, Burton's Batman. Now, I think Michael Keaton did an okay job as Batman. That was a very controversial choice, but
Yeah, he's like 5'5".
yeah.
Batman?
But he's held up okay.
How tall are you?
About 5'10".
Okay, you'd be a better Batman than Michael Keaton, although I like Michael Keaton. I love the guy. I'd kiss him full on the mouth if he was here right now. Michael, this is my invitation to you. You may not want any of this, but I'm telling you right now, I would, because I think he's a pretty decent guy, too. He's done a lot.
Well, Mr. Mom.
You can't go wrong with that. You know, John
And
Hughes,
Night Shift. I think Night
That's
Shift,
my-
that was my introduction to Michael Keaton. I
Ron
think it's his
Howard and
greatest
everything.
performance.
that was really good. I loved him. Johnny Blaze. Was it Blazkowski? Blazkowski? I can't remember what his last name was in there. I love that movie. We were talking the other day, you and I were about Nicholson as the Joker.
Yep.
There was a reason why they chose Nicholson, because the original movie was supposed to be more like the original 60s Batman, and Bill Murray was supposed to play Batman. And instead, they were going to shift him over to be Jack Nicholson's character, the Joker. And it kind of became an older guy who had kind of been around for a while, and that's why that people have often said that that's where that Nicholson character came from, was more of a working with Bill Murray.
I did not know this.
That's a strange one. I didn't know that.
So, I'm like I say, as I said, I'm not a big Tim Burton fan. I'm actually not a huge Jack Nicholson fan. No, don't want to fight about that.
No, that's okay.
But he really does a good job as the Joker. It's just was a most unexpected performance.
I'm a big One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest fan.
Yes,
That's just a genius.
I think Nurse Ratched is a misunderstood character.
that looked like my mom.
Really?
Yeah, they called her Nurse
I'm so
Ratched for
sorry.
a long time. That was a kind of a, but she did look a little like her.
Well, who would she tell if she caught you doing something bad?
Oh, you didn't have to tell anybody. I mean, you were instantly in trouble. She was one of those that would get you under the arm with a pinch or pull your hair on the back of your head, and then you didn't do it again. That was a great way.
Who was the woman who played Nurse Ratched?
Boy, I'll remember that.
It ruined her career. She got her Best Actress Oscar.
It was. I just had it in my head
Yeah.
too. It was.
And but it was such a defining role that she never really worked meaningfully again.
She did a couple other things. She did a couple other movies later on. There was one with Christopher Walken. It was like Dreamscape or Mindscape, something like this with.
The fact that we
Natalie
can't remember
Woods.
the name.
That was Natalie Wood's last performance,
Yeah.
is what it was. I love that thing. Lawrence Welk. Let's get into the nuts and bolts here, my friend.
Okay.
Is it true that you have twin daughters named Anna 1 and Anna 2?
That is not true. So
Why couldn't you? You could have.
Because I don't have twin daughters.
Other than that,
Well,
it's kind of a problem, I know.
I
Stop.
gotta say, once I've laid out the basic impossibility, I
Right.
don't need to give multiple reasons for the impossibility.
How did you ever get involved?
Just one day
You
wake
only had PBS? Is that the channels?
It just, I would say that the short version of the story, which is the best version, I read his autobiography. I bought a copy for $1 in a used bookstore because I love popular culture. That's why you and I have such good conversations. And it was an interesting, good autobiography. I found out he was a devout Catholic, found out a little bit about him, put it on my shelf. When I moved to Fort Wayne, I got an invitation from a group of business people. They called me up and they said, "You're the new theology professor. Will you come and give us a talk to our monthly businessmen's group? And you can talk about anything you want because we're not going to pay you any money."
This is a pretty big, juicy invitation.
Yeah. So, but I went, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I thought, I've got this book on my shelf about Lawrence Welk. He was Catholic. He was a businessman. So I reread the book quickly, and I gave my talk, 20-minute talk. They loved it. So I turned my talk into a column for a Catholic magazine, sent it off. They loved it. And then, you're like, well, and you laugh about it. And you say, yeah, I should write a biography of Lawrence Welk. And one day you say, I should write a biography of Lawrence Welk. And you just, as I tell my wife, the beauty of being obsessive compulsive is you never know what the next object of your obsession is going to be.
That's true. So you wrote a book.
I wrote a 3-volume biography.
A 3-volume.
Yes.
There's enough.
The definitive biography.
It would
of
have to
Lawrence
be
Welk.
definitive. What's it called?
Lawrence Welk. And his
that's a clever
his
title.
American Century.
Oh, in his American Century.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. So, but anyway, I spent about 5 or 6 years writing the book, and it's at press right now. I'm hoping it'll come out next year.
Really?
Yep.
Anybody do your foreword? Anybody famous?
No, his daughter wrote a blurb for it. I interviewed his daughter, went to California, stayed with her. She's still alive. Met his son. One of the daughters has passed away. Yeah, just one of those odd journeys in life where something that could be a passing thing catches your attention and you wind up. It worked through a lot of issues for me. I've always been fascinated with the 20th century American experience, and writing this, I kind of got to work my way through 20th century
Really?
America. It answered a lot of intellectual questions for me.
Intellectual questions?
Yeah.
Such as?
What is the nature of how you live out your culture?
Isn't that what V'ger
The
was
passage
asking?
of time.
V'ger's
yeah,
question.
kind of a V'ger question. Is this all there is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really, I would say, kind of doing a long, sustained walk through 20th century American history. I came to better understand a lot of historical phenomena that have fascinated me.
I'm a big fan of the 80s. I grew up, that was my,
I'm so sorry.
that was a big, I was 10 to 20 in the 80s. I mean, that's
I was
prime time.
14 to 24, or 13 to 20. Yeah, I was born in 66, so
Yeah.
13 to 23. I hate the 80s.
What'd you hate the 80s for? That Rubik's Cube really do it for you?
It was just blah.
Okay, the style was ugly. I'm going to give
Yeah,
you
the
that.
style was ugly. The music was unpleasant.
The music, you didn't like a Spandau Ballet?
No.
Rick Astley?
No, I spent the 80s listening to 60s and 70s music.
I do that today. I still listen to old Doobie Brothers and Eagles, Boston, and everything else. I think I could sing like that.
I was a 60s guy who, over the years, have shifted somewhat into the 70s. But I'd say writing this book, walking through the culture, all the nostalgia for the past finally got wrung out of my soul.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have written the book.
I probably shouldn't have. They always say, don't turn your hobby into a profession.
Is that right?
Yeah, and don't turn your illusions into an object of study, because you will lose them.
Ellen Burstyn?
No,
that
that
Nurse
wasn't
Ratched?
Ellen Burstyn.
No.
Ellen Burstyn was in Private Benjamin.
So you wrote this book. Are you going to do some talks? Are you going to go out and bring this thing on the road? What are you going to do?
I think the movie rights will probably enable me to retire early. So
Who would you want to play Lawrence Welk?
Oh God, That's a really good question. I've never thought about that before.
Because Robin Williams would have been good back in his day.
Someone asked me recently if they made a movie about me, who I'd want them to cast.
Brad Pitt. That's an easy one.
I said I would want Brad Pitt, but I also said they'd probably cast Steve Buscemi.
You know who would have made a good you? Philip Seymour Hoffman.
No, really?
Yeah. Don't you think? I think so. Yeah. He could have captured you.
Is it the heroin addiction?
That's probably the commonality there.
Yeah, well,
It's got to be a good portion of that. Yeah. I wanted to know what you had plans if you were going to shut the school down. You know, it was always
we have a very bright future, and I've promised everyone you're going to go home for Thanksgiving and you're going to have a
Pink
strategic
slips.
plan.
Oh.
And you're going to have hopefully a full cabinet as we look to round out the leadership team across the areas, as we've had some people depart, or we've had positions that were reestablished, doing a search for the enrollment management position.
Right.
So the dream is that when you have your turkey and your cranberry sauce over Thanksgiving, you know where the university is going, you know who the leadership team is that's going to take us there. And next year, we are guns a-blazing for the brightest future imaginable.
That's great to hear. Any movement on the VP and the AVP, EM, other letters position?
Well, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have announced the new VPAA/Dean of CASB.
That's good.
We have launched the search for the enrollment management and marketing. I don't expect that we will have a decision on that till probably October. And probably by the time this podcast comes out, we will have launched a search for the institutional advancement VP as well. We're getting the ball rolling on that. And I hope that by end of October, 1st of November, we'll have an offer out on that, if not before.
Right.
But these things take a little time. When you're doing a national search, has a certain pace that you can't speed up too much. The board will be presented a full strategic plan in October. We're also looking at a comprehensive campaign to raise money. In October, the board may not get a final proposal, but it will certainly get a good look at the outlines of how we want to go about funding some of the big strategic initiatives that are going to be in the plan. So we're going to enter January, we're going to enter 2025 really well positioned, I think, to succeed.
Are you going to tear down Trinity Hall?
I'm not going to do that.
Not personally, I mean. But
I have no plans to tear down Trinity Hall now.
No?
We do live in a universe where the third law of thermodynamics means that everything tends towards dissolution.
Yeah.
So every building on this campus will eventually outlive its useful life. But Trinity, we're investing in Trinity right
Really?
now. We are making improvements. We'll be putting in a plaza behind Trinity to let students enjoy the outdoors in a more segmented space. Inside, we've made improvements and continue to make improvements. Trinity is an important part of the next.
So we're not going to
phase
have
of
the
USF.
road so much
Right.
back there. That's great.
So we coming right along on fundraising for that. I anticipate next summer you'll see a lot of construction there. Given the school year coming up, given the winter season, I don't think during the academic year we'll probably be able to do much outside work. But the plan is summer of 25 to really redo the road behind it into a closed plaza where students can really enjoy the outdoor space.
That'd be great to see that.
I'm excited about it. I
love,
really, really am.
I love Holy Grounds. John and I go down there and get a whatever now and again. They don't ever seem to get the cinnamon or the fudge Pop-Tarts, which is it's such a horrible.
I can speak to them about that.
Could you please?
I would.
Do me a close personal favor.
Solid.
A solid.
I'll do
if
you a
will.
solid, my
Because
friend.
it's just very frustrating. You walk in there and it's like s'mores. What am I, 9? God. And I don't need them. I can tell you that, quite honestly. Thank you again for being such a good
Thank you
sport.
so much.
I appreciate it.
John, my friend, thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the podcast this time with President Dr. Lance Richey, or is it Dr. President?
Lance will do just
Lance? Okay, I hope you enjoyed our podcast with just regular Joe Lance. If you got any questions, we'll put his email down at the bottom, things you might want to follow up or know some more about Lawrence Welk. We'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Be very happy to talk to you about
I know
Lawrence
that you
Welk.
would. I don't see the Lawrence Welk Museum in here, but we'll save that for another time. Thanks for stopping by
That's
the
part of the
podcast, folks.
comprehensive
That's very comprehensive. We'll see you on the flip side, everybody.
Take care.